Much for explaining it.
Allison, want to get reaction now from both sides. Fair and balanced take on the budget now. Congressman Joe Sestak is a Democrat from Pennsylvania. Duncan Hunter is a Republican out of California. Gentlemen, welcome to both of you this morning. Make sure I got my facts right. Joe Sestak, you voted yes. Duncan Hunter, you voted no. Is that correct?
That's correct.
A big no.
All right.
Right,
Joe Sestak, what was it like to vote yes on a $3.6 trillion budget?
This deficit that is going to give us this year at about $1.2 trillion, a little bit over that, we actually inherited from President Bush about $1 trillion of it. I was very supportive of this bill in terms of that it keeps our economic recovery going because it does include in the deficit about $220 billion next year in 2010 that will stimulate the economy. However, I also felt strongly that, particularly in health care, which was a pay-go, deficit-neutral impetus, that we had to start restructuring our economy because small businesses, 42% of them say health care and its lack of productivity is hurting them very severely. Finally, I was opposed to the reconciliation issue. If we are to bring this through, it should not be on a one-party vote, and I vehemently disagree with reconciliation.
You started your answer by blaming the previous administration. It is a line we have heard repeatedly now from Democrats since President Obama took the office, the White House, third week in January. Duncan Hunter, does that argument get old?
Hey, Bill, yeah, and first off, let me thank Mr. Sestak for his service to the Navy. He was an admiral in the Navy, now a congressman. So thanks, Joe, for your service. Second, I wasn't here last year, so this isn't my fault. We have plenty of freshmen on both sides. We're just here to fix things. This spending did start last year, I would say, the last 2 years under President Bush, but it was this Congress that has spent more, borrowed more, and is now going to tax more than we ever have in American history. I mean, this thing goes back to the housing stimulus bill of last year, goes to the TARP, goes to the stimulus bill. Now we have more debt than we're ever going to have, we've had in American history. Debt goes up by 3 times as much what it is now over the next 10 years. It's too much to put on the backs of the American people. It's bad for small business.
And many
the way
people
to do
would
this
sit out there and they would listen to this interview and they would say to those who voted yes, what in the world are you thinking? How can you have a conscience to lay this off on the next generation of Americans? Because right now, not is it just the next generation of Americans, but if this continues, it'll be the generation after that, Joe Sestak.
Yeah, all modeling, including Moody's.com and Blue Chips, show that the best thing we can do right now is to put as much spending as possible from the government at the appropriate level to stop the hemorrhaging of jobs, and then on the Federal Reserve side with the Treasury Department to get the credit going again. Now, that's what's good. In President Bush's budget, there's $28 billion of tax cuts there and credits for small businesses. For example, there's $24 billion to help out on the 7A and 504C loans. In fact, he wants to write off all capital gains tax for small businesses. In fact, what he wants to do with the $637 billion deficit neutral for the health care reform is to begin to give 75 to 100% subsidies for small businesses. But right now, Bill, you know our problem is we've got to stop the hemorrhaging of jobs before we can do what my good Army friend wants to do, is restructure the systematic problem
here. But the other problem out there is what we're laying off on the next generation of Americans. Now, Duncan Hunter, I don't know what your view is on that, but many people would argue if you give more tax cuts, it's putting money in the pockets of people immediately. Now, what does it mean that no Republican voted yes on this in the House?
Well, not only did not one single Republican vote yes on it, we had about 20 Democrats vote no on this budget in the House as well. Bill, you and I aren't going to pay for this. We might pay some small tax increase. It's my kids, it's your kids that are going to be the ones carrying this debt far into the future. What we have to do is trust the American people with their money to get us out of this. Don't trust Congress, because Congress can't do it. Congress has proven over and over again that they don't have the ability or the willpower to stop spending. Trust the American people to do it. Give the American people back their money. Let them get us out of it.
You can log on the internet and check out these tea parties taking place in just about every American city now, and they're growing by the day. And you can sense the outrage, and you can sense what people are concerned about with right now. Check it out in our Fox polling numbers. It's not just Republicans or independents. It's Democrats, too, that they believe the government is simply spending too much money. Gentlemen, I thank you for your time this morning. By the way, I've got to run. I apologize for that. Joe Sestak will bring you back. Duncan Hunter to you as well. Thank you, gentlemen. $3.6 trillion. Earlier in the week, we wanted to know whether or not this whole idea about getting cleaner, greener cars was a good idea, and whether or not you'd buy one. Our British friend Stu Varney came from over across the great big Atlantic many, many years ago. And Stu Varney was with us on our program, and he said, well, he went off.
What?
He went off. Here is Stu Varney from Tuesday, I believe. Roll this.
What? I'm a European. I know these things. Europe is a tiny little place, so you jam people into tiny little cars. This is America. It's huge. Do you think Americans want to be crammed into some kind of little subcompact to drive across these superhighways for 3,000 miles?